Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons as I take more of your questions in another segment of Ask Judy. If you're enjoying these, please do hit like and subscribe. From D. Philippus 5297 wanted to know, was there a second floor on the soundstage with the bedrooms? The only reason I ask is because if the scene takes place in the bedroom and the door is open, you can see the parents coming up the steps to the bedroom. Was this an optical illusion or was there a second floor on the soundstage? There was not a second floor on the soundstage sets. They were all on kind of the same floor. There was the staircase that started to go up to the second floor, but as it turned the corner to continue up the stairs, there was really just a holding place. There was a platform there, and that was basically it. So we would all have to kind of just cram up there in that little space. And if we had to make an entrance, then we'd all come from that space. Or if we were going up, we'd go and we'd hide out in that space. So not a full actual level there. With that, what you're talking about with the second floor, all of that was on the regular soundstage flooring. But they had literally dug out where you see those stairs from what would be the upper hallway, the upper bedroom hallway, and you can look there and you see when people went down the stairs or came up those stairs. They literally dug out a section of the soundstage there and created those stairs that you went down a bit and turned a corner. And when you went down and turned a corner, it was just sort of a dirt pit. And so people would, again, stand down in the dirt pit and then come up those stairs or go down and disappear into that, which you saw a bit of in the burnout. You saw us, deal with those stairs as we were trying to get away from the fire in the bedroom hallway and then running downstairs and then going through the downstairs hallway and stairs. And also in the Ferris wheel, John Dayton talked about how, because Elizabeth is having nightmares and sleepwalking, that there's a point where in creating that sort of illusion of her being disoriented, they literally threw a handheld camera down those stairs to create the sort of tumbling feel of that. And he said it just went down and kind of landed in the dirt down there. So a horrifying thought, but there you go. So no second story for real. A question from Dave D2488. Question about the stove. Was it a working stove? If so, was the coffee and any food cooking hot? It was a wood burning stove. Like we actually sometimes saw the wood burning in the stove area. So it could be hot if we actually visually saw that. Otherwise, it was never hot. So you just had to pretend it was hot. So if things were on the stove, like the coffee pot, it was never actually a hot stove. So the coffee in the pot would have been poured from somewhere else. Like we had a actual prep kitchen that was just off of the kitchen set. So that sort of pantry door that was in between the stove and the kitchen cupboards, that door went out onto the soundstage, and right past that was a room that had been built with a functioning kitchen so that the prop department could prepare the food and use it as a holding area for food that we used during filming. So any food that we made, they would bring it from there into the scene. So I don't know that you ever actually saw things sizzling on the stove. If there was a pot or something that they were stirring, it would have just been, they prepared that someplace else, brought it in, and we would pretend to be stirring. Well, we would really stir, but the temperature wouldn't be changing based on the stove. And I don't think we ever saw bacon sizzling. I think you just saw maybe someone flipping pancakes or something like that, or taking them out of there onto a plate. So it was not an actual functioning stove that we worked with in that way. This question is from Wendy Higgins 902. I would be interested in a compare and contrast being in a series today is in the 70s. Annual time commitment, number of episodes per season, how far in advance did you know? So because I'm not working on a series now, I don't have a full comparison. I think for network like NBC, ABC, CBS, I think they still do about 22 episodes a season, which is, we did like 22 to 25, something like that. So that is still similar. If you talk about Other streaming or other networks, you'll often see there might be 6 episodes or 8 episodes or 10 or 12, maybe 13, but that might be it. So from that standpoint, those would be less of a commitment, but in some cases, they spend more time filming them. We did 6.5 days per episode. I think a lot of shows do 7 or 8. Nowadays, maybe they do even more than that, depending on how much action and what they need. They're always trying to keep it short because time is money. So that's my sense of it. I think 7 or 8 is kind of more the norm. And then depending on the number of episodes would depend on how much of the year you had that commitment for. How far, number of episodes and how far in advance did you know? For us, we would see how many episodes we were doing in a season. At the beginning of the year, we'd get a list of the episodes. They might not all be named. Probably a lot of them weren't written yet, but we knew about how many episodes we were going to be doing for that season. And we might know something about when our breaks were, if we had a break at the holidays, if we had a fall break, if we had a spring break. I don't remember those specifics particularly. But we would, depending on when we got picked up, but we always went back to work in like May. So we would know sometime between March and May. Towards the beginning of May, we might know how many episodes and what our start day was, and we'd get that information from our agent. Outside time restrictions on personal hobbies or other work activities. Because of our work schedule and because of how difficult scheduling could be with all of the different actors, typically when we were filming, we weren't allowed to do anything else, any other work, because it was just too hard to schedule around another show's work hours, their commitment. Because even though you might think, oh, I have a number of days off, if somebody got sick or weather or something changed our shooting schedule on the Waltons, they needed you to be available. So it was just easier if other opportunities came up to say, no, we're not going to work around you. We're not going to make you available. So it was pretty much a blanket no to doing anything else during our filming season, which was tough because we had a 9-month filming season. And usually when we were off, everything else was off. So it did make that restrictive. In terms of hobbies, they were actually really good about not restricting our hobbies. Sometimes they just didn't know what I did in my free time, like jumping horses or going skiing or playing roller derby or, whatever it was I was doing. They were actually pretty good about that. But I never missed any work due to any kind of an accident or injury. So I think that's why we had the latitude. I have worked on other things. I've done plays sometimes where they said I wasn't allowed to do other activities. I wasn't allowed to skydive or go water skiing or whatever. Other times they're not, so it's not specifically in your contract. I'm sure there are shows where they do restrict certain things. They have, different restrictions on what you can or can't do for insurance reasons. And, if an actor's injured and can't work, again, then the production can shut down. They have to do a lot of extra work to work around that. So I understand the concept, but it's tough when you want to be doing things and you feel restricted. How far prior to filming were scripts available to the cast? Anywhere from a day or two to maybe a week, but usually not more than a week. Usually it was sometime within the week before we started filming. We would get the next script. Okay, and love watching and the fact that you take time to respond. You're welcome. Thanks for your question. That's what I have for you for this segment of Ask Judy. I'll be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy, maybe even some more special guests. Thanks for watching.